Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how to install Klipper on the Raspberry Pi 4 or 5 or 3 or 0 or any other single board computer. It's all the same process. I will also be showing you how to get your Skr Pico flashed with Klipper firmware, and a little bit of setting up the printer configuration file. Now, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch you guys around to the back so you can see what I'm doing on the computer. Alright guys, so here we are on the laptop. First thing you're going to do is go here to raspberrypi.com/software, and you're going to get the Raspberry Pi Imager. Download that for Windows or Mac, whichever one you're using. I already have it, so I do not need to do that. Let's get that down out of here. Get that out of here. The first thing I would do is I would come down here. I already have it flashed, so I don't need to do these steps, but I'm showing you guys just in case you don't already know how to do it. Should load up any second here. Oh, there it comes. Okay. So when you first launch the Raspberry Pi Imager, you are met with this screen. Some of the older versions, they had a little settings wheel down here you could click on to change some settings around for the Wi-Fi, the username, and the SSH control on the Raspberry Pi. But these newer versions don't have that option. It's not needed. It's going to ask you for it at the end. So first thing you're going to do is choose your device. That's just whichever device you're flashing. So you've got the Pi 5 for the 2W320 and the Raspberry Pi 1. So you would just select whichever one you're using. Then you'll come over to operating system. Now you're going to, this depends which way you want to flash Klipper. Do you want Klipper to be running as the primary operating system on your Raspberry Pi, or do you want an actual Debian-based bookworm version of Linux distribution to be on the Raspberry Pi, so it is a fully functional computer, and then have different instances of Klipper firmware running within that infrastructure? So that is completely up to you. If you want to go the route like that, you would pick this 64-bit Debian, but we are showing this one, other general purpose operating system. So you click on that, you're going to come down here, scroll down. No. You're going to go to other specific purpose OS right here. Then you're going to scroll down, you'll see 3D printing somewhere right here. Then from there you can select whether you want OctoKlipper, OctoPi, Repeater server, or Repetier server, I believe. Yeah, that's how it's said. Simply Print, Print Watch OS, Duet Pi. This is just for Duet boards. It's Klipper that is made to run with their boards. Then you have Mainsail, which is what we're going to be doing today. You would click on there, select that, then you come over here to choose storage. I don't have it inserted into my computer because I have already flashed my Raspberry Pi, so I don't need to do this. But you would select your SD card right here for your Raspberry Pi. You would have it plugged into the laptop, formatted and ready to go. It needs to be formatted FAT32. Then it would show up here. You would click that. Whenever you're done with that, you would come down and click Next. After that, you would be greeted with a bunch of options for... No, you won't. You'll be asked, do you want to customize? You click yes. Okay. Then you're going to see your options. It'll have your internet. It'll have your SSH, make sure you enable SSH because you are going to need it. If you do not enable it, you will have to hook up the Raspberry Pi to a monitor, a keyboard, go in and do a whole bunch of other stuff. So just go ahead and make sure that you enable SSH from the get-go. That's where you'll set your host name and your password. Once all that's done, you'll hit save, you'll hit next. It'll go through the stages of flashing the operating system onto the Raspberry Pi. It will, when it's done, there'll be some pop-ups that say things like there's an error with your drive, you need to format it to use it. Don't format it, just ignore all of that and remove the SD card, and then you're going to insert it into your Raspberry Pi, apply power to the Raspberry Pi. Down here on it, there will be a green light that comes right here beside this red one, and it will be flashing. It will be pulsing profusely. Once it is done flashing and the light is constantly red, and it may have a little green flicker here and there like that just did, but that's nothing to worry about. You'll know whenever it's actually thinking and installing the firmware, because it will constantly be green or flashing very rapidly green. Once it's done doing all that, the firmware is installed and you are finished with the Raspberry Pi side of things. Okay, moving on. We are going to look at the rest of this installation. First thing you are going to do after installing Klipper onto your Raspberry Pi is to come over here to the GitHub. Let me back up here. We go to the Pico. So you're going to go to the Skr Pico GitHub. And you're going to come down here. You're going to click on Klipper. You're going to come down here. These are the two files we're looking at. These two UF2 files. They're .uf2 files. One of them is for USB communication, and one of them is for UART communication. The UART communication is through this cable that is provided with the Skr Pico. It just plugs in right here on the board, and then it plugs into the GPIO pins on the Raspberry Pi, which will be right here. Your two hot wires first, and then you have the ground and communication wires. Then it plugs into the board. That's how you communicate with it. Through UART, through USB, you will just have a USB-C cable here. So download the one that you need for your application. I am doing UART. The installation will be exactly the same for either. Like I said, it just changes the communication. That is all. Anyway, moving on, let's open that up. And you can see I have already downloaded it. I actually downloaded it twice. So we need to get the Raspberry, sorry, not the Raspberry Pi. We need to get the Skr Pico board ready to be flashed with firmware. So what you're going to do is there's included jumpers. So you need to add a jumper here. That's for USB power. You need to add a jumper here. That is for the boot mode. So it puts your device into boot mode. Then from there you will power it up with the included USB-C cable. Hook that into your laptop. And then plug that into the main board, your Skr Pico. Go ahead, I'm trying to do this one-handed here. So once you plug that in, it's going to pop up on the screen just like that. From there, you will hit the little reset button right here. It's going to go away and it's going to pop back up. it is in boot mode for certain now, and it is ready to be flashed. So you will come down here. It's very, very simple. All you will do is go to your downloads. You will take that file that you just downloaded and you will drag it from your downloads here into this folder that popped up. That is for the Pico, the Skr Pico. I don't know why I keep wanting to call it a Raspberry Pi, but you just drag it and drop it. It will go away and come back. It has flashed, but it is still in boot mode. So what we need to do is come back to the Pico and just remove this jumper here and hit reset once more. Now it is in normal operation mode, and you can unplug it from your PC. Mine is UART mode, so I'm just going to plug it directly into the Pi with the UART cable here. And if I can get it, there we go. With that cable, just plug that right in, make sure it's fully seated. Now I have power to my Pico, and it is connected to my Raspberry Pi, so they can talk to each other. Okay, now we need to get the configuration file set up for the printer. That is very simple. What you will do, exit out of that, you will SSH into the Pi using, I like to use putty. So let me get that out of there. I was already using it before. You get that pulled back up, putty here. Okay, so we are going to SSH into this. And the SSH is just the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. So you'll just log in. Then you will use whatever login credentials you created whenever you were setting up the Raspberry Pi. Now I am in to my Raspberry Pi here. And from here, if you chose USB mode, you will CD into Klipper. So you will CD space / Klipper. And then you will LS, just means a list. If you're not familiar with Linux commands, LS just means list. It's going to list everything that is in the directory if you do it like that. Now we're going to tell it to list a certain thing, so you will go LS space / DEV / serial / by dash ID / and then you will asterisk, whatever that's called, the little star. Okay, you put that behind that so that everything will come out as one solid line, and then you will hit enter. Mine is going to give me this: no file or directory. If you did not flash your firmware correctly, then yours will give you that only on the USB communication. So if you did not do your USB communication flash correctly, it will show you that. You just need to go back, repeat the previous steps, and flash the firmware again. Most likely you forgot to hit reset after flashing it to put it back into normal operation mode. Then you will just come back here and repeat these steps. Once you have that identification for your main board and the serial port, then you are ready to come over to main cell. UART, guys, it's going to be the same for everyone's UART, it will not change. So I'm getting ready to show you where that goes. So first we need a printer configuration file. So what we're going to do is just Google Skr Pico Klipper .cfg, and it's going to bring up the generic Klipper printer configuration. Okay, right here, let's see, let's find where's MCU on this thing. This is why if you're doing it UART mode, you do not need to worry about the step in finding the serial ID, because it's just going to be the same UART address for everyone. But right here is where that serial ID comes into play. First thing you're going to do is just go ahead and copy this file. You're going to come up here and you are going to put the same IP address in that you put in for the SSH, the Raspberry Pi's IP address, and that is going to bring you to the main cell interface, and you will be greeted with errors. They won't be the same as mine because this is not a fresh install, and I had a Big Tree Tech Eddy on the previous machine. So I'm going to go down here to printer config. I'm going to select that. Actually, let me just select all of these, and I'm going to back them up, and then I will delete them all so that I can show you what it will look like when you first get on here. The only thing I'm not going to delete out of mine is the main cell Moonraker configurations. Those will stay, because if they do not, I will not be able to show you anything else. It will completely quit working. Okay, so redo this. Okay, now what you will be greeted with, why is this still showing up? Let's do that, firmware restart. Okay, there. Now this will be the error you are greeted with when you come into main cell. Do not worry, it's not a big deal. All it's saying is you do not have a printer.cfg directory, or file rather. So we're going to create file. You're just going to name it printer.cfg. That is where you will come in here, click on that, and you will copy over, Control V, copy over that printer configuration file you just copied. So you will paste that over to here. This is going to give you all of your basic stuff for your printer. It has all the pinouts ready to go. You may need to change one or two things depending on your setup. Just like mine, I will need to change this. So let me get that out of here. And I cannot remember the UART address. So what I'm going to do is, where I just backed those files up, I'm going to go look and see what that address is. This will not be the same for yours. Alright, but if you are using UART mode, this is the address. It will always be this address. It will not be different unless you make it different intentionally. And you have to do that in the Raspberry Pi's firmware. So unless you do that, this will always be the same address. Okay, so we'll close that down. This goes here. Just paste it in there, and then hit save and restart. Now, it has communication. But because I do not have a thermistor hooked up to this board and it's just sitting here, I get this error, ADC out of range. If you encounter that, it's just simply because you do not have thermistors hooked up. Okay, so in conclusion, we have now set up Klipper on the Raspberry Pi. We have now set it up on the Skr Pico, and you are ready to continue your use of both. What you need to do is make sure that you edit that generic file. This is for all you guys that are first time users that don't really know what's going on with that. That just set up all the parameters for your printer, like so your travel in X. You're gonna have to figure out what the maximum is, and you set that. Y same as Z. So you're gonna have to set all those things up so that you don't have a printer that's trying to crash into the side of it, or it won't go higher than 50 on the Z height or something like that. Whatever, that's a little drastic. I don't think any of them set to 50 millimeters, but you get what I'm saying. You're going to have to change quite a few things inside of that file to fit your application of the board. So another cool thing about the Skr Pico is it has a dedicated laser port, so you can actually set it up for a laser cutter and engraver as well. It is a fairly capable board. I have had it do speeds of 600 at 24,000 accelerations on my Ender 3 that is modded all the heck. So that being said, it's a fairly capable board. It's not going to be the greatest board you ever used. It's not going to be the fastest or the strongest. You know, you're not going to get 1,000 millimeters per second speed with 50,000 accelerations. It's just not going to happen. It just doesn't cool the TMC stepper drivers fast enough. They will overheat, they will burn up, the board will be toast. But it's a pretty cool little board. It's got 3 little inputs for fans. It's got the main board, the hot end fan, and the part cooling fan. You can control all 3 of those. They're all 3 controllable. Let's see what else about it. It does sensorless homing, so those extra jumpers that you've seen right here on mine, these extra ones right behind these steppers here, or these stepper drivers rather, those are for sensorless homing. So if you want to do that, you can. That's why I have mine set up in UART mode. You don't have to have it set up in UART, but because I'm using UART sensorless homing, I just feel like it should all be on the same communication. You can use the sensorless homing with USB communication. It's the same exact way. I could possibly do a tutorial on that to help you with setting that up if you guys want, if this video gets enough interest. I don't expect it to really go anywhere, but maybe it helps a few people out with setting it up. I do have a Ender 3 to switch wire conversion that I will be building and doing a complete guide to it, a build guide. So I will be uploading that. Let's see. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, concerns, run into any issues, drop it down in the comments and I'll do my best to help you. So anyway, see you later, guys.